Hello, I am Adriana, and I'm going to share with you how to have meaningful recreation and leisure in your life, and tips and tricks on how to cultivate your moments. Hello everyone, it's so nice to virtually be here and be back on. I'm so excited to share some updates, explain a bit about what I've been up to the past year, and really give you an overview of the future moving forward. So I just want to first start by saying thank you for being patient with me, because I feel that this year has been full of lots of experiences, lots of learning, and also lots of reflection. I've done lots of reflecting this past year. I feel like a lot of us have, and I think it's helped shape me into who I am today and really empower me and motivate me moving forward. Let's start off back last year, the end of May, when I stopped podcasting for a little bit. So it is for a number of reasons. The first being, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome. So at the moment, back last year, we were in the midst of a global pandemic still with COVID. And then we also had a lot going on, a lot of tragedy around the Black Lives Matter movement. And I felt imposter syndrome. That's what I felt. And I'll explain this a little bit more later of what that is and, how I felt it in more detail. But I wasn't sure where my voice sat, if what I was sharing was relevant, and if I had the credentials, essentially, to talk about recreation. At the same time, I was really busy. I was in the midst of my practicum, so a little background history of me and my profession. So last year, I took the recreation therapy certificate program at Norcross College in Edmonton. And this year I'm now taking the diploma program. So essentially, to break that down a little bit, the first year we learn all about the recreation therapy assistant role and what that is. We learn lots about the different concepts and core theory to recreation therapy. And I really took it upon myself to apply these to myself and help myself improve my leisure lifestyle. That's really where I got my passion of recognizing that recreation therapy can be beneficial and helpful to everyone, not just someone who necessarily has a certain need they need help with, but in a growth mindset, we can think that we all have room for improvement. Everyone can grow or learn a new strategy or a skill, and I think leisure and recreation is a great way to do this. So now that I'm in my second year, I'm learning all about the therapist position and becoming competent in that. And I'm going to be going on practicum the beginning of May, which I'm really excited about. I'll be learning so much and being able to really apply those core concepts. And I really want to use this as a way to, help you guys learn a little bit more about the population I'll be working with as well, because I think it's really an important topic to talk about. So it is in, the mental health sector, which is going to be amazing. I think it's such an amazing client population, and we all have our own individual mental health, I don't want to say struggles, but mental health experiences. And I know for myself, I'll share a bit about mine moving forward. So right after my practicum, I was very grateful and blessed to have the opportunity to go right into practice as a recreation therapy aide and also supplementing in the assistant role as well. So with this, the first 2 months of any job, you're going to be transitioning into a lot of things. The first month specifically, I have anxiety, so I was, having anxious thoughts of if I'm good enough, and I was really building my confidence in the field. I think this is so important because I look at myself now, 10 months past, and looking back and seeing how much my confidence grew in the field just from those 10 months and how much I had learned and experienced is so eye-opening and amazing, and it just goes to show how important experiential learning really is. Right as soon as I got into the groove of work, it was nearing the end of summer. Like I had mentioned already, I went into my second year of studies in recreation therapy. And the first semester, I did only have 2 courses because I had transfer credits. But with that, I no longer had the extra time I had in the summer, or I didn't make the time really, to do things I loved, like the podcast. Because although I love it and I love learning and creating, I didn't have a good schedule set up to really be able to sustain the movement and growth I needed to, continue to create podcasts every week. Now, I'm really excited to be sharing a podcast with you guys and know that I have 10 guests set up to come on and speak, and I'll explain a bit more in a little bit. So in my second year, I first struggled a little bit about, applying a strength-based approach to, the recreation therapist role, because strength-based approach is so vital and important to me, and I wanted to utilize this as a recreation therapist. And some of the course concepts that we were learning were really focusing on, the client has a problem and we need to help fix them, which is not at all the case in recreation therapy. The client or an individual or yourself may have a need, and you may need to be supported or help remove some barriers there and overcome some barriers. But one, you never need to fix a person. You always just need to support and empower them. So when I got this new light on it, I really became extremely passionate about, how can I advocate and utilize a strength-based approach in my practice, in, just in the community. Thankfully, this has been something that's been instilled in me since I was young. I was able to see the strength in anyone, which I definitely feel is a strength in myself now. I know before, sometimes I saw it as a bad thing, or people made it seem like it was a bad thing, but it's not. It's so important to see the strengths in everyone, regardless of, what they're going through. November rolled around, and as someone who has had seasonal depression in the past, I definitely saw it creeping up, but I just kind of brushed it off. I didn't think anything of it. I was feeling really empowered and felt like I got a lot of purpose out of work, so I didn't think anything of it. And then also, the overlap with COVID and not being able to see my family at Christmas, and really just not being able to see my family because I am in a different town than most of my family. So this became really hard, especially as someone who, identifies as an extrovert. I really thrive and feel my best self when I'm connecting with others and when I'm doing meaningful recreation and leisure. In the winter, I kind of got out of this loop. I do a little bit, but, it was more so with people and not as meaningful or reflective as I needed it to be. So I now know and understand a really interesting theory called behavioral activation. And I want to get someone on to talk about that who specifically focuses on that, because what I understand from it is that, there's this cycle that we go through if someone is depressed. And it's essentially that we're feeling depressed and we do less activity because of that feeling. And so I couldn't break this loop because I wasn't doing meaningful recreation and leisure for me. And when I started doing that, I did start feeling an improved mood. And I want to have someone on, like I said, to talk and go in depth about that, because it's a really interesting concept, and it kind of was a aha moment of recognizing that I had personally known that if I was feeling down, if I did something more meaningful, even though it seemed like so much effort at first, if I did something meaningful, it would improve my mood if I continued it. I think it'd be interesting to have someone talk about habits too. There's so many different things to talk about. Anyways, at this time, I was also just very in my head about something. So I was feeling guilty that, I wanted to create content again because I knew that brought me meaning. And I felt guilty for not posting. So I had all of this cluster of thoughts in my head. When I let go of that, just allowed myself to be creative when I could, I started feeling a lot better. And when spring started creeping, I could feel it in my bones, I swear. I was really excited to get outside again and, visit friends and family at social distance. And this was kind of the time when I realized that I was pretty deep in depression before. I didn't have any motivation other than work. I really loved work and I enjoyed school. But once I got home, I had a hard time eating. I had a hard time doing anything that was meaningful outside of work and school. And I was going through a lot of struggles. And a really amazing YouTuber talked about this as how she felt numb. And that's really what I classify it as. I gave my everything at work, gave my everything in assignments. I probably got the best grades that I ever have been, but I didn't give anything to myself. And I didn't give myself time to do recreation and leisure. And I could really see that showing up in my life. Another aha moment of relearning a lesson that I had learned before of the importance of recreation and leisure in my life showed up. I think, lessons in life really come and go when we need them. So even though I had learned that lesson and I knew it and I strongly believed in it, I wasn't doing it. And thankfully, this just reawoke my passion and room and reason for advocacy for recreation and leisure and the importance of it. So another thing that I mentioned was imposter syndrome. So I'm going to read you off a definition and explain a little bit about that and my experience with that. I know it's something that lots of people have been talking about, and I think it's good because when there's conversation, the shame and normalization, shame gets removed because it's a normalized experience. So imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you. And I think another thing that I felt about this was I didn't feel competent. I didn't perceive myself as competent, not only for others, but for myself. And, like I said, I was going through some internal experiences that weren't that pleasant, to put it nicely. I was really hard on myself, and, this imposter syndrome set in, not at my work, but just in my personal life of this podcast and creating content. I love and appreciate and support so many different recreation therapy professionals who are on Instagram advocating for the services, and I love it and I appreciate it. And I noticed that a lot of them had larger credentials than me, and I started thinking, am I sharing the right things? Does my experience matter? Is what I'm sharing important? Do I have any competency to share this? Yeah, a lot of doubt set in. And I really sat with that for a while and went back to my core concepts and beliefs as I move through life. My biggest one is seeing the strengths in others. And a thing that I did really well in the first year is apply those concepts to myself. And in the second year, I was overwhelmed. I was really overwhelmed and I didn't apply those concepts to myself. I continued seeing the light in others and I kind of stopped seeing it in myself, which can sound really dark and deep, and it's because it was. I think a lot of the times we don't take time to recognize, and we feel shame when recognizing or telling someone how we felt dark and we felt our words may not matter. And going back to the strength-based approach, not only do I recognize that I have strengths and my purpose and passion is important to share with others because it helps motivate them, my experiences and lived experience helps shape and tailor, how I explain something that may help someone else understand it better. I want this to be something that you reflect on too of, what am I bringing to the world? What are my passions? What strengths do I have? Because I think we can get in a cycle of recognizing others' strengths and not taking time to accept and recognize and appreciate our own, because we all have strengths and something to offer. And that's why I really want to get a lot of guests on and ask them what their passion is and hear them light up when they share about their passion, just as I share about recreation therapy and how passionate it truly makes me. Not only when helping empower others to, have more recreation and leisure, but also how much it empowers myself when I do it. That moves us to, my future endeavors and what this podcast has to hold. So I have over 10 guests lined up to be on the podcast, and I'm truly excited and I can't even imagine. I feel like I need to pinch myself because there's so many amazing people out there, and I can't wait for them to share their strengths and their passions with us. So some of these guests are going to be talking about recreation and leisure. Some are going to be talking about, the physical domain and how, movement truly is medicine. Some are going to be sharing about individuals with dementia, therapeutic communication, and strength-based approach. There's going to be such amazing conversation. And over the last year, if it taught me one thing, it is that I love continued education, and I think it's so important in continuing our knowledge just as individuals, and if you're a recreation therapy professional or medical professional, it's so important to continue our learning and our understanding of different concepts and recognizing the importance of it. So I can't wait to have these guests on to not only help me understand and learn, but also to help everyone who's listening. So I am so excited. I can't wait to continue creating content and listening to these amazing speakers. I can't wait to see what my future holds and how I can share it with you. So thank you, and I'll see you next week. I hope you have a great week. Goodbye.